FPL is back. It is a complete guide to game week 30. And wow, over the past couple of days, the FA Cup weekend, so much has happened. We've had the rounds of FA Cup, which have given us a much clearer picture of what the rest of the season will look like in terms of doubles and blanks. But most importantly, we've had injury updates or injury scares to players like Chris Wood and most importantly, Erling Haaland. It looks like I'm going to wildcard this week in game week 30 to change and play the assistant manager next week. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about different chip strategies. We'll have a look at 3 different wildcard drafts as well. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here. And it is back. We are back. And we are back with one of the most crazy 48 hours and probably week of FPL there will be this season. And I'm actually seeing a lot of people saying, Harry, this feels like the craziest, most difficult season of FPL. I think it's one of the most unprecedented quick change arounds. We've had to wait so long for information and then have such little time to act on it that we do now. So in today's video, it is a complete guide. I hope we cover everything you need to know about game week 30, but also about game week 31. We'll also discuss a little bit about game week 33 and game week 34, the blanks and doubles, of course, after the FA Cup that we've been waiting for as well. Just to start off, covering off a few bits of injury updates for players in my team. Very briefly, Ahmad actually looks like he might return to training at some point soon for Manchester United, but he's unlikely to be back very soon. Mykolenko has an injury and looks like he might be out for a few weeks as well. Those two don't really matter. The big 3, the positive news is that Cole Palmer has been back in Chelsea training since Friday. Given that Chelsea don't play until Thursday, we are fully expecting, and I fully expect as a Chelsea fan and someone who owns him at the moment, that Cole Palmer should be back fit and available and ready to start for Chelsea at home to Spurs. The other benefit, of course, that Jackson and Madueke are back for Chelsea. That will boost Cole Palmer's output. Palmer hasn't actually scored since those two got injured as well. However, less good news. Chris Wood looks like he's going to be out for a while. He hasn't actually been officially ruled out of the game against Manchester United, but Nuno said that it sounds like they'll be without him and they'll be looking forward to having him back, which wasn't great. And then the big one, which came today on Sunday in the FA Cup, was Erling Haaland. Player that I brought in game week 29, didn't buy Bruno because I wanted Haaland, because I wanted him at home to Leicester. It looks like he's picked up an injury. Now, we don't know confirmed if he's out for the game against Leicester, but he was seen leaving the ground in a protective boot, which looks very, very bad for him. I'd be very surprised if he starts against Leicester. We should get a Pep Guardiola press conference on Tuesday just to confirm that. But again, I would be very surprised if he plays in that fixture. So with 2 free transfers, I could, in theory, sell Chris Wood and I could sell Haaland and play this week and wildcard next week. The issue with that is the wildcard teams that we'll look at are very similar in game week 30 to game week 31. I would also be improving the rest of my team quite a lot. Like I wouldn't have Mbeumo away at Newcastle, which is okay. I wouldn't have Pickford. I probably wouldn't have Williams. I probably would be improving my squad quite a lot. I'd be gaining quite a lot of value. So plus the rolling of the 2 transfers, plus the other big benefit to me wildcarding in game week 30 is the ability to assistant manager in game week 31 to 33, which feels like the most logical and sensible thing for me to do. I didn't necessarily feel like I needed to, but with the bench boost that we're going to look at, just not feeling that strong in general, doesn't mean that I really need to plan to do it in a big double. I can kind of play it as and when I want later on in the season. So it does feel like for me, the best strategy is to wildcard 30 because my team looks in an absolute mess. I look at my bench and my starting 11, and if someone was to miss out, I wouldn't only not have any cover, I would have Greaves or Mykolenko if either of them are going to play for their teams coming in off my bench. So my team is in an absolute mess. And if your team is in a mess as well, we're going to talk about quite a lot of wildcard 30 strategies. I put up a poll on Twitter. Now, 20% of you said that you were going to wildcard in game week 30 regardless before today. 35% of you replying saying you have decided to wildcard basically based off the FA Cup results and also the injury news that we've got. 30% are looking at a wildcard in game week 31 still, and then about 10% are doing other or they've already used it. So almost everyone will have played their wildcard by the time game week 30 comes around, and probably 60-70% of people will be playing it this week if they haven't played it already. So there is a big movement towards wildcarding this week. If your team looks strong this week, like let's say you didn't buy Haaland, and you've got a good team and you don't have Chris Wood, or you can do one transfer of Wood to Mateta, that is absolutely fine. You don't need to wildcard this week. If you have assistant manager, it's something worth considering because of those 3 weeks of assistant manager, which we'll talk about. But if you don't have the assistant manager and you want to save it, it is absolutely fine to do. But looking at my team, I think it just makes most sense for me to do it. And now I know this slide of chip strategies has been pretty confusing this season because of how many different things could have moved. We now have a very, very clear set of chip strategies. And if you don't have the assistant manager, you basically only have one strategy that I'm going to recommend to you, and that is strategy 1. So if you do not have the assistant manager, we will have a look at a wildcard 30 draft for you. Is a wildcard 30 or 31, triple captain 32 if you've still got it, bench boost game week 33, and free hit in game week 34. Game week 34 is going to be a reasonably sized blank. We'll have a look at the fixtures projected in a minute. There's going to be a lot of the teams that we're looking to own in 33 for the bench boost, not playing in game week 34. Free hit 34, if you still have it, is definitely the best week to go and play it. Bench boost game week 33, it is likely to be the best week. It's not going to be incredible, but the wildcard draft I'll plan for you in a moment, it is the best week to play it. Also, it allows you to leave open game week 32 if you still have the triple captaincy available. Now, if you don't still have the triple captain available, you could bench boost in game week 32 because the bench between them is pretty similar, but I would generally be going with bench boost 33, free hit 34. And again, just like we spoke about at the beginning, wildcard 30 or wildcard 31, there's not that much difference between them. Wildcard 31, you'll more likely, almost certainly have the information of when the doubles and blanks in 33 and 34 are likely to fall. In game week 30, it's unlikely we get it before the deadline, but we can make a pretty good prediction, which is what we will do in a moment. And if your team is a mess, I think it is worth doing it in 30. If your team is not a mess, I still recommend the wildcard in game week 31 if you can do it. Now, that's if you don't have the assistant manager. Life is pretty straightforward now. If you have the assistant manager, you have a couple of options. If your team looks really strong this week and you're pretty happy with your team this week, you could go with the crowd in general. In wildcard in 31, triple captain if you've still got it in 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, and assistant manager over the final 3 weeks of the season. But if you are like me and you are looking at a team that feels like it's not good enough and you want to pull the wild card early, it actually has a big upside potential of being able to play your assistant manager from game week 31 to game week 33 with the wild card in the week before. They are ranked in order. So if you don't have the assistant manager, option 1 is definitely the best. If you have the assistant manager, I definitely think option 2 is the best. But if your team is really strong this week and you have the assistant manager, then you could decide to wildcard 31, triple captain 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, and assistant manager 35 if you have all of the chips left. Then having a look if you are missing a chip. If you're missing the bench boost, for example, but you still have the assistant manager, then definitely you go with strategy 2. If you're missing with the triple captain, that doesn't really matter. You just don't triple captain in game week 22. If you're missing the wild card or the free hit, though, that's when things start to become a little bit less clear. If you don't have the free hit, I would be planning to wildcard probably in game week 34. Use your transfers to bring in players from Palace, maybe Newcastle, and the other teams that are going to double in game week 32 and 33 to get through best as possible. And if you don't have the wildcard free hit in game week 34, look to build up players from the likes of Palace, from the likes of Manchester City that are predicted to double in game week 33. Don't worry about the blank in game week 34 and then free hit that week and have the final few weeks of the season. So things feel much clearer now. Again, I think only about 15% of you have the assistant manager left. And if you're in the 85% who don't, strategy 1, wildcard this week or next week, depending on how your team looks this week. Then triple captain in 32. If you have it, bench boost 33, free hit 34, and then you have the final 4 weeks of the season without it. And if you have the assistant manager, I probably would recommend option 2 unless your team looks really good this week. So just to look very briefly, if you're in the camp where you are deciding to wildcard in game week 31, but for example, you might have an injury or you have a player you don't like starting for you this week and you're looking for a few players to buy just for one game, here are probably my top recommendations. In goal is Alisson. If not, it's Henderson. Liverpool have a really high clean sheet potential and not that many people still own one of their defenders. Into defense, Gvardiol is 1, Munoz is 2, and Kerkez is 3. Gvardiol, if you can get to him at home to that Leicester team, is definitely where I'd go, but I also like Munoz and Kerkez. You can see a theme with the teams that we've got here. Into midfield, it's Sarr, it's Eze, and then it's probably Kluivert at home to Ipswich. I just really like the Crystal Palace attack and what they're doing at the moment, but all of them are nice 1 week punt. And then, of course, the forward, Marmoush, Mateta, and Evan Nilsson. Marmoush now with Haaland looking like he's out, should be up front and may well be on penalties as well. If Haaland was available, Mateta would be number one. But actually, I think Marmoush is probably a better short-term punt. And if you need a cheaper option, it's probably Evan Nilsson at home to Ipswich this week. So having a look at the upcoming schedule. So game week 32 that you see on here is the confirmed schedule. We know that there are doubles in game week 32. Game week 33 onwards is a prediction at the moment. So as a reminder, we've spoken about this. We expect to have this confirmed going into game week 31, but probably not game week 30, which again is why if you have the ability to delay the wildcard until game week 31, it's probably best. It's not impossible we get it on Monday or Tuesday, but it seems very, very unlikely now. So having a look at game week 33, we are predicted to have 4 teams doubling. Arsenal and Crystal Palace, of course, with the fixture moving out of game week 34, and Aston Villa and Manchester City, of course, with their fixture moving out in game week 34 into game week 33. The one other fixture that needs to be rescheduled is Brentford. My teams with a B getting mixed up is Brentford Nottingham Forest. That is predicted to stay in game week 34. The reason for that is Nottingham Forest play on the Monday night in game week 33, so there isn't really that much time for it to stay in game week 33. A few of you have asked me, could that game go on the Thursday? Could they make Forest play Monday, Thursday, and then a Sunday FA Cup semi-final? I'd be very, very surprised if they make Forest do that. It seems most likely that it will stay in game week 34. Midweek of game week 34 is free for teams not in Europe. So that's why Arsenal Crystal Palace can't really go into that midweek, because Arsenal might still be in the Champions League. Aston Villa and Manchester City has the same case. It can't really stay in game week 34 because Aston Villa might still be in the Champions League. But Nottingham Forest and Brentford are both not in Europe. So there is a prediction that that will not form a double. It could go into one of 35 or 36, but the prediction is that fixture won't cause a double and all the others will go into game week 33. Again, this will give us a double for 4 teams: Arsenal, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, and Man City. Crystal Palace would then be given a double-double in game week 32 and game week 33, and then all those 4 teams that we just mentioned would then blank in game week 34, which again is why the free hit is really useful in game week 34, because all the teams in game week 33 that you want loads of, that you want to have on your bench boost, then don't play the week after in game week 34. So you could free hit in game week 34, buy a load of players. For example, Wolves at home to Leicester, Newcastle triple up at home to Ipswich. You could go on to Nottingham Forest home to Brentford. You could punt on Fulham against Southampton. There are really nice fixtures for a free hit in game week 34 and then not worry about them for the rest of the season. And actually today we have had a slight leak, or not leak, but a hint from West Ham, who have released an article actually a few days ago, which said there is a potential for their game against Nottingham Forest in game week 37 to move into game week 36 if Nottingham Forest were to reach the FA Cup final. So what that leads us to believe is potentially the game week 37 fixture, which is the same weekend as the FA Cup final, those fixtures that clash with the FA Cup final will likely move to the double in game week, will move to the midweek of game week 36, potentially giving us a double in game week 36. This is also why free hit 34 works really well, because the teams still in the FA Cup will double in 33 and then have a chance of doubling in 36 as well if they do reach the FA Cup final. We don't have the predictions here, but the predictions are that it will be an Aston Villa Manchester City final, which means that Manchester City against Bournemouth would move to game week 36 and Aston Villa against Spurs would also move to the midweek of game week 36. We will not know this though until game week 35. We will not have much notice. This all just goes hand in hand without going into too much detail of why bench boost 33, free hit 34 is definitely the best strategy if you have those chips left, because 33 along with 35 and 36 go well together, whereas 34 feels like a very stand-alone game week. So Arsenal would double away at Ipswich and at home to Palace. Aston Villa would have Newcastle at home and City away. Palace would have Bournemouth at home and Arsenal away, of course, after their double of Manchester City away and Newcastle away. And Manchester City would double away at Everton and at home to Aston Villa again. Likely to be announced before game week 31, unlikely to be announced before the game week 30 deadline on Tuesday. So now we're going to walk you through 3 different wildcard teams depending on what your chip strategy is. We're going to start off with those of you without the assistant manager looking to wildcard in game week 30. If you want to wildcard game week 31, we will have videos doing that next week, but this is for those of you looking to wildcard in game week 30. So if you have no assistant manager, and your wildcard 30, bench boost 33, free hit 34. This is the draft that I would look to go with. David Raya and Gabriel with an Arsenal double up. Gvardiol and Munoz with great fixtures this week. You've gone with Kluivert, Savinho. Savinho I've gone with as a punt as my third city. I don't love him, but you basically only play him twice. You play him at home to Leicester and you play him in the double in game week 33 if they get it. So that's not the end of the world. We've gone with Mo Salah, who looks like he's going to keep his place. I don't plan on taking him out. We've gone with Sarr over Eze, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Isak, Marmoush, and Mateta. Pretty much every wildcard will have that as a front three. On the bench, Martinez, of course, predicted to double in game week 33 as well. Trippier and Murphy for the Newcastle double in game week 32. And Wan-Bissaka just to be helpful on the bench boost in game week 33 with Southampton at home. Now, you will notice when you go to build this draft, you have a lot of money in the bank. I've gone with Sarr over Eze. You could go with Dan Burn over Trippier. There is a reason there is so much money in this, because there are 3 planned transfers going into the double in game week 33 to help facilitate that bench boost. Now, between now and game week 33, the plan with this team would be to not use a single transfer. You've already got triple Palace. You've already got triple Newcastle for their doubles. This means you would have at least 3 free transfers at a minimum, depending on how many you've got now, to potentially make changes going into that week. And those changes would be Kluivert out without his double to Bukayo Saka. That is why you need to make sure you've got at least 5 million in the bank when you build this draft. If you wanted to start with Saka over Kluivert, that's absolutely fine. We just don't know he's definitely going to start the next 2 games. So you probably would take Kluivert at home to Ipswich before making the swap and leave the money in the bank. Murphy to Rodgers for the Aston Villa double, and then Alexander Isak out and Ollie Watkins in for the Aston Villa double. This would give you a bench boost team of Kieran Trippier, Martinez with their double, Mo Salah with his game against Leicester, and Wan-Bissaka at home Southampton for free, looking like 12 doublers, which is the maximum you're allowed to have, because of course if 4 teams double, you can have 3 from each. That's 12 doublers, plus the bench of Trippier, Salah, and Wan-Bissaka for the bench boost in game week 33. That is what this team looks like. You might, when you build this team, think, well, I'm going to go Eze over Sarr, or you're going to upgrade Savinho to a Foden, for example. But you need to be cautious that when game week 33 comes around, if you want to buy Saka, for example, you need to have that money in the bank. That is why I've gone with Sarr over Eze. I think Eze is a slightly better pick, but I don't think there's that much between it. If when you build this draft, you can't afford those future transfers in game week 33, or it doesn't leave you that 5 million in the bank, just do Burn in over Trippier or go Livramento in over Trippier. That is another very easy way to sort the money out. But this is a wildcard team. It looks really strong for the next few weeks. You surely wouldn't really have to use a transfer over the next couple of weeks until you get to game week 33, in which case, as I said, you sell Kluivert, you sell Isak, and you sell Murphy. You get your full list of 12 doublers. You can then free hit them out in game week 34 when they likely blank, and then you go into the final few weeks of the season. Next up is having a look at a wildcard draft that plans on playing the assistant manager in game week 31 to game week 33. And this is most likely what I go with, one of these 2 wildcard drafts that we've got. Now, the reason I've got 2 is it depends on which assistant managers you want to use over that 3-time period. The first option I've got is you go Emery or someone in game week 31, but it's mainly the Glasner route. Glasner for the double in game week 32 and the Glasner for the double in game week 33, given that eventually we think it will be announced. Now, you could go with Glasner in game week 31. They have Brighton at home. At the moment, it's table bonus. However, it's not predicted to be table bonus once game week 31 does come around, because Palace are expected to actually climb above Brentford in the table, meaning the gap between Crystal Palace and Brighton in game week 31 would only be 4 places rather than the 5 needed for table bonus. So game week 31 could be Emery. It could be Amorim at home to Manchester City. It could be Thomas Frank at home to Chelsea. Emery at home to Forest, if Glasner is not bonus, would probably be the one I would opt with. If not, it would probably just be Glasner for 3 weeks if they have table bonus at home to Brighton. This draft is very similar. The only difference is you have a couple of changes on the bench in the backup goalkeeper and the 5th defender, because you, instead of needing them to be having a good fixture in game week 33 for the bench boost, you need to have a good fixture in game week 35, because that is when you're most likely to bench boost. But apart from that, things look pretty similar. Instead of having Sarr in there, you've got Rodgers, because you need to leave the Palace spot open for Glasner. You've got David Raya in goal, Gvardiol, Gabriel, Munoz, Kluivert, Savinho, Salah, in this case, Rodgers. You could start Rodgers or Murphy this week. Isak, Marmoush, Mateta. We've gone with Verbruggen. It could be another goalkeeper. It could be Pickford again. Has a really good fixture in game week 35. I think it's Ipswich at home, which is perfect for the bench boost. Trippier, Murphy, and O'Brien. This, again, like the other draft, has a couple of transfers planned once you reach game week 33, but nothing between now and then. Isak to Watkins, which I've said, and Murphy up to Bukayo Saka. So again, you'll need to make sure that you're leaving enough money in the bank with this team. If you don't have the money to spare, then of course, just Trippier down to Dan Burn is an obvious way that you could free up a bit of money. Now, the other thing that you might want to do is go for a different Aston Villa midfielder. You might want to go Rashford. You might want to go Asensio as well. At the moment, if Villa do knock out PSG, Rodgers is the safest for minutes long term, and that's why he's in there. He's also cheaper than both Asensio and Marcus Rashford as well. But I do like the other two as potential options. O'Brien is in again. Ipswich at home in game week 35 would be part of the bench boost. He also has Southampton at home in game week 37, which can be useful rotating with a few of the other defenders that actually have quite difficult fixtures that week. The other version of this wildcard draft, if you are looking to play the assistant manager, is actually something slightly different that we discovered when we were doing the impromptu stream on Sunday evening. And that is the potential to go Emery as assistant manager for all 3 game weeks. So you keep it on Emery for table bonus at home to Forest in game week 31. Instead of going somewhere else in game week 32, you stay on Emery for Southampton away. And then you have Unai Emery for game week 33 versus Newcastle and Manchester City as their predicted double. Now, the benefit to this is you don't use a transfer going game week 31 to game week 32 to game week 33 on your assistant manager. Emery may have table bonus against Newcastle or Manchester City. He might not. But if he doesn't have table bonus against either Newcastle or Manchester City, that's probably because he's beaten both Forest and Southampton. And if he does that, you're probably already on 30 points for the assistant manager. So you're probably pretty happy with it. If he doesn't beat Forest, he probably will have table bonus at least against Newcastle or Manchester City, if not both of them. The other benefit to this is you get triple Palace and triple Newcastle. I'm not a fan of playing the assistant manager on Eddie Howe. I don't think it works. I think this is a much stronger route. Prefer the bonus, and you have to move the assistant manager if you go Eddie Howe in game week 33 anyway, most likely to Emery. And I just think this is better, and having triple Newcastle and triple Crystal Palace. So you'd have Munoz. The only difference in the team is Sarr over Rodgers. So basically the difference between these two is, do I want Sarr for their double-double and then Emery, or do I want Rodgers and Glasner? And that's where we're at. The Rodgers-Glasner route does use up an additional transfer, potentially, is one to have a look at. Now, right now, at time of recording, I will be playing my wildcard, and I think it's most likely to be the first option. I do like the Unai Emery route, but just having the potential that Glasner might have table bonus home to Brighton means I do want to keep that door open, because that would be single-handedly the best assistant manager option of the entire season if for some reason they did have table bonus at home to Brighton in game week 31, and I could just play him for 3 weeks. If not, I would probably go Emery and then go to Glasner. So right now, this is the wildcard draft that I will be looking to build over the next couple of days. I will be confirming transfers this evening. It's currently 10:30 on Sunday evening to try and catch a few price changes, but I'll only be looking to buy players. I think Isak's predicted to rise tonight and stuff like that to try and get ahead of it. I won't be building drafts, but I imagine it looks something a bit like this. I'm not certain on a few players in here, like Savinio. I think I want Triple City, but I don't know if he's the third one. Do I want a different Aston Villa midfielder if I go with this over Rodgers? Do I want to just start with Saka? Like, if we get a good update in the press conference on Bukayo Saka, do I just start with him over a Kluivert, for example, and just stick him in the team? Or do I just go with a triple Arsenal defense, which is also a possibility? And, for example, go Munoz to a Timber or a Saliba, and then do Kluivert to Eze. And instead of going with Munoz, go for Eze. There are a few little tweaks that I'm looking to make, but this is generally the base. And I'm almost certain that it will be wildcard 30, assistant manager 31 to 33, trying to taste table bonus, free hit 34, and bench boost probably 35, but potentially 36 as well. So that is all. I don't know how long we've been recording for. Almost half an hour. So we will wrap up the video there. In this video, if you're just skipping to this, I'll put my team back up on screen. You can see the state of it again at the end of the video and why we're potentially wildcarding now. we've covered chip strategies, wildcard drafts for the 2 different chip strategies which need a wildcard draft this week. We've covered a few players to buy if you're not playing your wildcard this week. We've covered chip strategies if you don't have your free hit or your wildcard as well. I've got time on Monday. Drop any questions you have about all of this in the comment section down below. There'll be a final decisions video out on Friday morning. It's normally a Tuesday morning, where I will have a better update on my wildcard, what it's looking like, what my plan is with assistant manager and stuff like that. We will, of course, have press conferences though, and I think Arsenal will probably be Tuesday for Saka. So going into the deadline on Tuesday, of course, we'll be finalising everything. But because of what's happened with the way my team is looking, wildcard 30, here we go. Anyway, any questions you have, drop it all in the comment section down below. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here. It's good to be back, and I'll be back again very soon.